The code goes off and I'm giving compressions on this person. The color change of the person's face, blood coming out of their mouth. I never experienced life leaving someone. And I closed the door and I just sat there, probably 20, 30 minutes. Hey, you should have taught me that. Episode 10. This is the Nice Veins Bro podcast, the number one podcast for nurses who want to live that next level life. I am Nene Pablo, host of this podcast, registered nurse and creator of Nice Veins Bro. I have a confession to make. Somehow I made it through nursing school without actually putting a Foley in an actual human being. Yeah, I don't know how I did it, honestly. Yeah, we put the Foley in mannequins, in the skills lab, but an actual human being, I didn't actually do that until I was a baby nurse on the job, and I was following my preceptor. Because I know sometimes with clinicals, they have you check off, what you've done, and I can't remember, honestly, if that was a requirement to actually get it done or if I watched someone, and I don't know. But I did. It's true. I have made the confession. Don't judge me. I tell you what, though, it didn't affect how good I am at putting Foleys in, because at that same floor, I became a CODI super user, which means that you went to some special training on the proper way of putting a Foley and the proper way of removing it, and on the rules and policies that are in place for that on your unit. You have like special training of some sort. So I actually got that on that unit. They would call me the perverted one because I had that special education. But today we're talking about things that nursing school doesn't teach you, not things like that Foley thing. There's things that they teach you, things that you miss. I'm talking about things that I think they should teach you in nursing school, and they don't. We're going to cover that. I've learned a lot on my own in my practice in real life, and things that I just look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish they would have taught me this in nursing school, or at least a heads up in nursing school. But no, you can't win sometimes. What does nursing school teach you? Definitely not everything, but sometimes it's okay. I don't think it's possible. There's certain things that you need to figure out on your own. For example, like if you have that nurse sense, when you go into a room and you're asking questions and you know that your patient's lying about their health history, you just got that gut feeling because you have experience at the bedside, what is seen in real life. And when, you start to see them and you've got this gut feeling that something's wrong, and then, later on they code, that kind of sense that you get, you're not going to learn that in nursing school. And there's no way they could. So there's certain things that they're not going to teach you, and it's fine. But like I said, we are going to cover all the things that I think, hey, you should have taught me that, and they didn't. Okay, stick around.
Let go. Nah.
Hola mi gente, everybody has a crazy nursing story to tell. If you want to share yours with the world, send it to me. I'll feature it here on the podcast and you can get my take on it. You can also ask me questions, love questions. Remember, HIPAA rules do apply when you're telling your story, of course, and I will make sure you remain anonymous. I don't know what you're waiting for. Send me a message, niceveinsbro.com/podcast. That's again, niceveinsbro.com/podcast. Looking forward to it. All right, nursing school. I think I'm going to start with this one. This is, I think, to me, the most obvious one, is that nursing school isn't going to teach you to care. It's not going to teach you to empathize. Wow, I'm starting out bad. I need to know my words. Oh my gosh, empathize. Nursing school doesn't teach us to empathize. Ever heard of empathetic training? Empathetic training is a thing that they actually give at the hospital. They started doing that around when I first got started at my first hospital. They had this thing that they required us to go to empathetic. Oh my goodness! They had us go to empathetic training. And, it dawned on me like, wow, this is something that they actually don't teach in nursing school. How do you can't teach someone so care and empathy isn't really the same thing technically. So let me differentiate that there. Nursing school it's impossible for anyone to teach you to care. But what I mean is empathy. And empathy has to do with the ability to understand, the ability to put yourself in their shoes and know where they're coming from. That's what empathy means. And you can actually teach someone to practice certain habits and certain things that will help them to be better at empathizing. And so this is what they were training us nurses when I was at my first job. And I remember thinking, wow, this is some stuff that I really think they should have covered in nursing school. It kind of feels like, wow, we're already, not that I'm criticizing that nurses shouldn't go through that kind of training after they graduate, but I think that, wow, this is kind of late. Like we're already in our practice. This is something that we should have done in freaking fundamentals of nursing. Nursing 101, baby, No, that's not what they teach us. Actually, what they focus really is on the science of nursing, which is not a problem. I'm a huge fan of that. But the problem is, I think that there's so much focus on the science and we become so sciencey that then the actual, like the heart part, we kind of just, it's a given. Like anyone who goes to nursing, they just kind of have a heart. They can empathize. They can, hold somebody's hand. No, like we've become so sciencey that we forgot the power of like literally holding someone's hand, like the physical contact, the listening. Like we're not taught to listen, Actually, let me correct myself. I do remember us talking about active listening and all these sort of stuff, but it was not like an emphasis. I'll say that. Okay. So let me give nursing school a little credit. Okay. At least my nursing school did cover some of that in fundamentals of nursing, active listening, all this stuff. But it was kind of like something you just do and glaze over and then you move on. And I think that we don't focus on how important that is. In fact, sometimes patients don't need a scientific answer. Sometimes they really just need love. They need compassion, they need love, they need empathy. Nursing school, I think, doesn't teach it or does a very poor job of, emphasizing it, which I think is a cornerstone to nursing. Second thing I think that nursing school doesn't teach is how to process trauma. Oh my goodness, I can get an amen on this. I can just imagine. We go through nursing school and then we graduate. And for some of us who go into these more higher level of care areas, when we're confronted, I don't care what you saw in clinical, when it's your patient that goes through some crap and, either codes or when you're dealing with family that's lost a loved one or something traumatic has just happened, you're dealing with either abuse or any of that, mental health, all of that stuff, traumatic experiences that happen. I don't remember being taught how to process it. Chalk it up to like, oh, you have to, what is that called? Debrief. Like, okay, you have to debrief, right? But then that's it. That's all I got. There's nothing about being mindful, like writing things out, nothing about like actually practicing that or going through some of the what to do if you start experiencing PTSD or making sure that we have a list of the local therapists that we can go to around the hospital. Nursing school is so headstrong focused on the patient that the experience of the nurse themselves is like, that's not covered. There's no class that talks about how to, live with some of the baggage that comes with being a nurse. There's no class like that in nursing school. I remember the first code that I had. I want to kind of give a background here for this story because I never experienced life leaving someone. There's a lot of us that have experienced that before we went to nursing school. Me, I didn't experience that. I never had a moment before nursing school, like at their deathbed. I didn't have that experience. When I went to the hospital and I started working, the very first time that I experienced like I'm involved kind of code. It was a couple of months after nursing school that I'm working, and I think I was still being precepted at the time. But I'm working and giving my patients meds. The code goes off, and oh my gosh, it's very triggering because you know what I mean. Like when you're in the hospital and you're a new nurse, like the first thing that you think is panic, right? I don't care what your knowledge says. The first thing is panic. I ran to give compressions, and I'm giving compressions on this person, and the color change of the person's face, the blood coming out of their mouth, all of these different experiences is traumatic to me because it's the first time I'm actually hands-on on a person who's dying and actively coding. Okay, it's my first time. They call the time of death. I remember I stepped off the patient and I walk out into the hallway, kind of like stunned. I hear the patient's family burst through the doors from the waiting room, just weeping and wailing, looking into the room. The patient's family was around my age. I'm walking back to my patient's room because it wasn't my patient. I'm walking back to my patient's room to continue doing what I was doing, and I noticed everyone was just going about their day. It's like your body doesn't know whether to cry, whether to stay and comfort the family, or whether to, just sit in silence, or to say something or to not say something, and it was like all these different emotions. And here I am having to take care now of my actual patients. And I realized that nurses go back to work, and that's it. Like no one noticed what had just happened. Like a person just lost their life. I remember I got, after I clocked out, I went to my car and I closed the door and I just sat there for a good probably 20, 30 minutes. And I just started weeping like crazy. As much as I studied and passed exams and knew what was quote unquote what I was going into, when it actually happened, that trauma is there, that PTSD is there. But there was no debriefing after that. I went home, I went to bed, and then went back to work the next day. That's what I'm saying. It's like nursing school doesn't teach you how to process that, or who to talk to, or what resources there are. And I don't know, maybe there's someone out there who knows exactly what I'm saying and can relate because you had a similar experience. You don't forget your first code, your first real code. Like, it doesn't matter if you're a Hall Buddy's patient or if it's your patient, you're going to remember those things, and those things stick to you. I mean, they stay ingrained in your brain because they're traumatic experiences. And yeah, they give you thicker skin, as you move forward in your career, but they do cause trauma because it's not normal for someone to see those things, you know what I mean? Especially if it's for the first time. If you've seen it, in the past, or you come from a family who's medical, then maybe it's not as much of a surprise, but it definitely was for me. So nursing school doesn't teach that, and I think that nursing school should. Okay? I'm going to start calling every nursing school and tell them how I feel. Just kidding. Okay, something else that nursing school doesn't teach you, and I think it should, is they should teach you about relationships. Who to marry. Just kidding. There's so many times that I've thought to myself, like, oh my gosh, how are you a nurse? You have terrible communication skills. You have terrible listening skills. You don't even know how to be a good friend, much less a good coworker. You know what I mean? And there's people out there who are nurses who are this, and I'm like, I think nursing school needs to teach you, for example, let me bring it close to home, how to build rapport with your patient within the first 30 seconds of entering the room. You know how important that first interaction is? When you talk about like business schools and sales and marketing, they talk about a pitch, how you do your elevator, quote unquote, elevator speech. Like, nursing school should teach us how to interact, how to come into a room and introduce yourself. Instead, no, it's just, hi, I'm Susan, I'm gonna be your nurse. It's like, that's not, you've got to go in there when you first meet them, you got to make them laugh, you got to make them feel good to get them to trust you. But that kind of training doesn't exist in nursing school. And I really do think it should, because it changes the entire relationship moving forward for the next 12-hour shift and beyond. I mean, what's happening now is you've got so many nurses who don't know how to build that rapport, and then they don't build that trust with the families or with the patient. And then they go and get medications for the patient, and they complain about how the family doesn't trust, my license when I come into the room with them. I don't care. You know what I mean? I don't care what kind of license or education you have. You've got to trust the person. They've got to trust you. And that comes from the way that you communicate. It comes by the way that you have eye contact with them, for example. It's a lot of different pieces. We just complain like it's their problem. And you know what? No, many times it's not their problem. There's one time I went into a patient's room and they were, what is it? That one, is it Jehovah's Witness? The whole blood transfer thing or the blood transfusion thing. That was something that was in a report, and I was like, okay, I know that they're Jehovah's Witnesses. I go in the patient's room, start saying, hey, this is my name, blah, blah, blah. And I explained to them, this is the situation. I understand that you guys are Jehovah's Witness and have declined the blood transfusion. These are the risks with that, but I want to respect your guys' decision. Here's the H&H. I actually even asked a little bit of what they believe, hey, explain to me what you believe, et cetera, that kind of thing. When I did that, I mean, they were so reserved when I first came into the patient's room. And when I did that and I started leaving to get some more meds, the husband was like, listen, I can tell that you are different than the rest of the nurses. We trust you. Out of nowhere. That's what he said. He's like, I trust you. And you know what makes the difference? He said, you listened. You listened and you understand. People don't know how to do that. Instead, they go in and they're like, sanitizer. Hey, okay, I'm going to be your nurse today. I'm going to get some meds for you, all right? Okay, here's the call bell, and then just run out the room. That's not, my gosh. Nursing school didn't teach us how important it is to build rapport with patients and their families, how to be the best coworker, how to deal with doctors and RTs and lab techs or anyone who's on the unit who is giving you a hard time. The way that you respond, the way that you communicate, that is essential in nursing. And it's like hardly touched in nursing school, if at all. Okay, I have one more, and then I'm going to give you a bonus as well. So nursing school doesn't teach you what options you have. Whew! I am passionate about this one because I think that this is probably the number one thing that they got to be teaching. Here's the situation. Nursing school teaches you to be a hospital bedside nurse. That's what nursing school teaches you to do. It doesn't even hardly scratch the surface of what it means to be a nurse. It just says, go to nursing school, work at a hospital. That's the situation. That's the worldview that we have as nurses. It's like nursing is bedside nursing. Nursing is bedside nursing. Nursing is working at a hospital. Nursing is working at an LTAC, and that's it. Like, that's the only areas of nursing that you have. That's the only options that you have. Nursing is so much more than that. And what makes me really frustrated is when I see baby nurses going into the work environment, into the hospitals, feeling like that's their only option and then staying there for years and years. I cannot tell you how much guilt there is with many baby nurses who don't feel like they're called to the hospital, but they don't know what to do because they feel like if they leave the hospital to work in any other environment as a quote-unquote nurse, that they're somehow turning their back against nursing. Listen, if you're an informatics nurse, you are 100% a nurse. You are just as much as a nurse as the freaking ECMO nurse who's, titrating 20 drips at a freaking level 1 trauma center in a downtown major city, okay? You are just as much as a nurse working as a school nurse or working as an injector or working in whatever it is. It's so frustrating. It's so frustrating to see nursing schools continue to push the message that there's this nursing shortage. What are they looking at? They're looking at the hospitals who are poorly staffed. That's the only measure that you can say that there is a nursing shortage because hospitals don't have enough staff. It's all part of the same argument. No, nursing is more than working at the bedside. Not that there's anything wrong with working at the bedside, but the point is, nursing is the heart and the science. When you look it up and you look at the way that nursing was found, like the idea of nursing, it is the heart and the science on how to attain and maintain or recover optimal health and quality of life. That is what it is. You can jump into many different areas. You can jump into many different areas as a nurse and be just as much of a nurse. Nursing school, sort of like ingrains in you that there's only one size fits all kind of nursing. And that's just not true. Nursing school doesn't teach you what options you have. I wish that coming out of nursing school, like senior year, that they would give you listen, these are all of the options that you could go into. Here's a comprehensive list of anything that you could dream of that you could get into. All of the areas no, it's a witch hunt. It's a witch hunt. You go to nursing school, you get a job at a hospital, and then you just kind of have to figure it out. Do you like it? No. You either go back to school or you find a different hospital. You have to do web searches, what other options are there for nurses? Typing it up in the middle of the night because you're crying because you hate your job. How many nurses are doing that right now? That's the problem. Nursing school didn't tell you that there are unlimited options for you. You have 1,000 billion options. That's not even a real number. Sorry, I just get really frustrated about that one because I feel like I see that a lot. Not only did I experience that, but I see it a lot. Almost everyone comes out of nursing school with that mentality. And it's something that you have to fight against it. And you got to teach people, to think the right way. So much more than the hospital, so much more than a unit. You have a ton of options. Hey, I just want to thank you for listening. It means the world to me, especially because at the time of this recording, I'm still only a couple months from starting this whole thing. So if you're interested in helping me build this brand even more, please share this podcast on your social media and grab some merch from the website at niceveinsbro.com. Got some great stuff there for sale. Send me a DM on Instagram and share some encouragement, some love, and some hate. I will welcome that too. But don't be shy. Talk to you soon. Okay. So the last one I want to give you is a bonus. It is that nursing school did not teach you how to live that next level life, baby. That's why I'm here. That's thankfully, that's why I'm here. No, but seriously, this is, hear me out. I'm not just trying to make a joke here. This is the whole reason why I, am trying to get the word out there. This is the whole reason why I'm making this podcast. The whole point is to get nurses to live healthy themselves, balanced, healthy, living that next level life. We did take nutrition. We did take a couple of prerequisites. I took one called health and wellness. And they taught us about, a healthy diet and exercise, right? But how does that play out in a nurse's life? How do you live a healthy life as a nurse yourself with the stresses that you have, with the trauma that you go through, with the schedule that you're dealing with? They didn't teach you. They didn't teach you that. They just said, this is what you tell your patients. Okay, this is what you tell your patients. There's a disconnect there. And I wish that nursing school was a little bit better at saying, okay, here's how you take care of your patients and here's how you take care of you so that you can take care of your patients even better. Like that piece to me is always missing. And so it just kind of nursing school assumes that, if you know what to tell your patients, then you know what to tell yourself. And that's not always the case. You are going to go through stress. You are going to go through trauma. You are going to go through hardship. You are responsible for a lot. There's a lot of stress on your shoulders. You're dealing with many different, people in the multidisciplinary team. You've got to know how to communicate. You're basically a therapist, wearing so many different hats. With all of that, here is a class. Here is how you can live a healthy, balanced lifestyle. Maybe I'm being a little too idealistic. Nursing school only has a certain amount of semesters. They've got to put in a bunch of information, all of that stuff that we need to learn in order to pass the NCLEX and all that stuff. But the point is that, if nursing school didn't teach it, that is not an excuse for us to not figure these things out for ourselves, right? Now we take personal responsibility. They didn't teach us how to do this in nursing school. Okay, that's fine. They should have done it. Oh, well, now let me go back to this list here. Now we get to learn how to empathize. We get to learn how to process trauma. We get to find out how to be better at relationships. We get to know what all the different options that we have. And then we also listen to Nene Pablo on the Nice Veins Road podcast to find out how we can live that next level life. See? That's taking personal responsibility and not blaming it on your nursing school for the things that they didn't teach you. Nursing is always going to be about learning. It's always going to be about learning. So, we weren't going to know everything off of what they taught us in nursing school. Get it. That's fine. But now you can make a decision. Now you can make a decision to say, okay, now I'm always going to be a sponge, trying to get as much information as I can to learn how to be better in my own personal life and for my patients. So you should always, always, always be learning. So that's what we're all about here on this podcast. If this is the first time that you're listening to this, thank you so much for joining us. I would love to have you join us on Instagram, on YouTube, on any podcast platform if you're not listening to it already. We're all about God, wellness, and purpose here, about teaching or helping nurses live that next level life. If you'd like to help me build this brand, if you believe in the message behind the brand, I'd love to request your help in building it. I have big dreams for this brand and I can't do it without you. Let's get this message out to nurses, my people. Let's get this message out. So if you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with someone on social media. Please tell a friend. Comment below if you're on YouTube to help the algorithm. Like it and subscribe, do all the good things that every influencer harasses you to do. That's it for this podcast. Remember, be a positive force within healthcare and society. I am Nene Pablo. Gracias por escuchar. Que Dios los bendiga. When I would listen to podcasts before I became a podcaster myself, I didn't realize how much leaving a 5-star review helped. And so now on this side, I just want you to know that it really does mean a whole lot when people review and share the content. So if you enjoyed it, please share it with somebody and leave a 5-star review on whichever platform you use, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. And if you're interested, you can also find us on social media at Nice Veins Bro, or shop online at niceveinsbro.com. My personal stuff you can find under Nene Pablo, which is spelled NENEPABLO. I spend most of my time on YouTube making vlogs and videos and on Instagram. So I would love to connect with you. And remember, be a positive force and influence within healthcare and society. It's all about God, wellness, and purpose here. Thank you for listening.